Welcome to another episode of Measuring Success Right. My name is Stuart Bird, and I'm joined here by Kimberly Sagers. Kimberly, thanks for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
Uh, we are excited for Kimberly to be on the show with us because you, Kimberly, have a lot to say about healthy ways to measure success.
Mm-hmm.
And you are such an integral part of the Marriott School of Business here at BYU. And so, first, I just want to talk about who you are. So, starting with, um, so you are uh, the are a licensed clinical social worker at the Marriott School of Business. You
Yes.
specifically help with counseling and psychological services to help with the mental health and well-being of the students at BYU.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Um, talk talking about your background. You studied here at Brigham Young University. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs, always. I'm wearing red, but I bleed blue.
Yes, perfect. You got your degree in family studies,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went to go work, or you went and got your master's of social work at the University of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have a few license and certifications. You're licensed as a clinical social worker. You're a certified perinatal mental health counselor, and you are also an EMDR certified provider.
Yes, that is my bio, and when you read it out, I think, and how did I end up here at the Marriott School? But if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to share a little bit
Yeah.
about that journey. So I went into social work because I am really passionate about trauma. And so I started working with survivors of sexual assault. And then, as you mentioned, I'm perinatal mental health certified, which means I work with postpartum depression, anxiety, things around becoming a mother. And I was focusing in my private practice on those areas, trauma and perinatal mental health. And I loved that. But I started noticing a trend with my clients. They'd be coming in and almost across the board, they would say, I was in all of these gifted classes as a child, and now I'm a normal human and I feel like a failure. Or I have this big successful business, this big career, and even though I'm doing great, I still feel like I'm not enough and it's a secret that no one knows. And I got started getting really curious about that. And I asked some colleagues and they said, nope, we're not seeing that same clientele. We don't know why they're being drawn to you. And so I started focusing my private practice on therapy for the not enough. When this job came up at the Marriott School, I thought, a whole college of really successful people who feel like they aren't enough. And that's what led to here. So all of those things that they might feel like they might feel like they don't connect as much actually come together to be what we focus on in mental health in this space.
That is so interesting
Mhm.
that you realized that what you were seeing that had such a prevalence here at the Marriott School of Business and at BYU. And I have seen that. Like um, me and some other friends and peers, uh, we grow up and in high school we were doing great, getting great grades and feeling so great at doing lots of extracurricular activities. And then it's easy to come here to BYU and think, well, everybody else was
Yep.
like that as a high schooler too, and like now I don't feel so special anymore. And so that's cool. That's cool that you're here and that you are specialized in helping students who feel that way. I And that kind of leads into our next question I wanted to ask you, the next topic, which is students here at the Marriott School of Business and at BYU were learning skills, getting expertise, getting experience, meeting people, growing our relationships. Um, so very busy, lots of things grabbing for our attention. Why should focusing on our mental health and well-being be something that we should give attention to?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this question in preparation for this interview because I live in the mental health world every day.
Yeah.
So it can be like, of course, we should focus on that. But I thought about the students here use their brain every day, all day long, late into the night. You're using your brain and your mind trying to get through your assignments, navigate your relationships. You're using your body to try to, again, get through that same really stressful, busy day. And it's taking a toll on both of those things. And I would actually add like your heart and your soul as well. That takes a lot of energy to do what students are doing. Now, if you had a car, it's your one car that you have for your whole life, and you are driving it for hours and hours and hours every day, but you never go get a car wash, you never change the oil, you never rotate the tires, how's that car going to be in the long run?
Not very good.
It's
Not
gonna
yeah,
be rough.
yeah.
But sometimes we have this idea that talking about mental health can be kind of like this like mumbo jumbo, like woo woo sort of thing. And I do actually believe that is getting better. But to me, that's kind of thinking, oh, I don't need to take care of my car at all. I just have to think, I'll just think I'm fine and my car will keep going. No, like there has to be maintenance along the way.
Yeah.
So mental health is the maintenance so you can actually achieve the goals that you are wanting to do.
I love that. I love that. That if we're busy, we're using our minds,
Mhm.
but if we don't take care of that, then yeah, we're not going to be able to use them.
Mm.
Um, they won't perform.
Mhm.
Just like a car.
Mhm.
Wow, I love that.
And then lots of times, we'll just keep going with this car
Yeah.
analogy. That have you ever seen a car with like duct tape on the on the bumper or something? Like
Yes.
just like this works. We can kind of just like tape this and hopefully it doesn't fall off. Sometimes we do that with our mental health that we're in a bind. We're like, my mind needs relief. I have built up this pressure higher and higher and higher. Our body and our mind is like, I need something to give. So we turn towards things that are just not the greatest fixes, but they work in the short term. We binge on food. We look at social media a lot. We do things that we're not proud of because our body is trying to get relief. We're trying to put duct tape on the car. It works for the moment, but how is that going to be in the long term? It's going to struggle. So that's why we need to really invest in the mental health. And that's why the Marriott School is investing in having a therapist in house, doing workshops, doing therapy. Let's do the actual work so that you can make changes that are going to benefit you.
Wow, I like that. I love that. So you, as the
Hmm.
therapist in house at the Marriott School, um, what are what are some things that you offer
Hmm.
students? What are some things that you do to help students not just put duct tape on the car, but actually make some real changes and benefit?
Thanks for asking. And there's a whole menu of things because everyone needs different different options. So, uh, probably the simplest is that I do workshops or presentations for classes
Okay.
because a lot of students just need to know, hey, I have a lot of stress. How do I manage that? And so that's something that we can do in a group setting and they can figure out what works for them. I help also facilitate groups. I help people get to other resources on campus that are already there and free for them. But then a lot of my time is doing individual therapy with clients, or I call them clients, but they're the students here. And I have two social work interns that also provide therapy. And we talk about anxiety, but we also talk about the other parts of their lives that are causing distress. People's hard things don't stop when they're in school.
Yeah.
So they come in and they talk about relationships, family things, things that have happened in the past. So we do that individual therapy, and then we also can do couples therapy as well.
Okay. Wow. So wide
Mm-hmm.
range of services, and um, I love that focus on um, stress and anxiety, and what are some things that can be done. I was just reading on BYU's counseling and psychological services site, and I appreciated this paragraph or this sentence. It says anxiety is a normal response to a perceived danger or threat to one's well-being or self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that often our self-esteem or our well-being can seem endangered
Mm-hmm.
by a deadline coming up or comparison. Um, I like how it says intense academic competition, fear of inadequacy regarding an academic challenge, or relationship discord may be some of the sources of anxiety. And it sounds like you are working to address those.
Yes. Very early in life, especially for a lot of the students here, we start to believe a story that my worth is tied to my outcome. And usually that's academic outcome for what we're working with here.
Yeah.
And so it's like you said in high school, that works well because look, my worth is right in line.
Yes.
But there comes the point where you're going to get a bad grade. You're not going to get the internship you want. And instead of just being disappointed by that, it becomes a complete shattering of the self because this is who I am. And if I'm not the smart one, who am I? So in therapy, we do some deep work of rewriting that story. What do we base our worth in? And how do we stay grounded in what really matters?
I love that. And um, I like that. What do we base our work in, and our worth in? Sorry, what do we base our worth in? What are some things that you try to tell students? What do we base our worth
Ooh. This is something I had to learn really early as a therapist. I I can't actually tell them anything. Because someone can tell you all day long, just put your worth in Jesus and you're fine. It's great. He loves you. And while that's true, if it's not coming from you, it feels very hollow. And so what we do is I ask a lot of questions. I think my job is truly just to ask questions to help it come from some place that feels authentic and in line with them. So we help students identify their unique values, the relationships they want to deepen, and the things that they really believe. And we sometimes grapple with hard things so that they can come out uh, with something that feels very true to them, even if it's a simple phrase at the end of it. Oh, Jesus loves me. They've gone through a journey to believe that for themselves.
I yes, and coming to know that for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that is so essential.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Thank you. And I like how this is a focus in the Marriott School because the Marriott School of Business is all about helping people prepare for their future careers.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Marriott School of Business has a guiding principle. It says we evaluate our decisions and actions by the impact they will have on the academic experience, professional preparation, character development, emotional well-being, and spiritual growth of our students.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, everything they do is for that. And I was just doing some research on um, from the APA from the 2024 Work in America survey,
Mm-hmm.
and they had some interesting statistics about um, employees. They say that a majority of 67% of workers reported experiencing at least one outcome, often associated with workplace burnout in the last month, such as lack of interest, motivation, low energy, feeling lonely or isolated, and a lack of effort at work.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like that's almost inevitable, but if students have learned how to um, cope and to work through their stress and anxiety here in the Marriott School, help them in the future.
Yes, and I imagine that students hear this all the time, that the Marriott School leadership, professors, everyone truly cares about them. They want the students to feel supported in all these ways, not just learning the skills, but becoming people who can uh, really thrive in life. And that's really unique for a business school. It's they're not just doing it with lip service either. They're really invested. And this is the time to learn the skills about mental health, about balance, because it's just going to get harder. Sorry, spoiler, there's going to be other stressors in life. So figure out what works for you now so you can have a more sustainable career and life.
Yes. Yeah. and I also recognize, and I know that you um, specialize in mental health, so you know this more than that, better than I do, but that um, some anxiety and depression can come independent of circumstances and needs um, more than just coping mechanisms, but needs some real help.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know
Yes.
that's true too.
So the time in life when most mental illnesses arise is in this college time. So while the bulk of what we do does focus on anxiety and depression, because people can have anxious episodes, depressive episodes, they can feel this way for a short amount of time. We're also at this time of life where people could be getting an understanding that this might be a lifelong struggle for them, or other things that aren't anxiety or depression. We help people start to figure out, oh, there's something else going on. Let me get the resources that I need. And that is just crucial for their well being and health for the rest of their life.
Yes. So how great that you are here as a resource to help people identify where they can receive help and where help can come.
Yeah.
So, thank you. I love that. So at the Merit School of Business, there are 4 core values.
Yes.
Faith in action, or sorry, faith in Christ in action, integrity in action, respect for all, and excellence. And we talked a little bit before about how excellence is one we can focus on. That sometimes when students think of that value of excellence, some perfectionism or anxiety that comes from being a high achiever might sneak in. And so, just how do you think we can have a goal for excellence, but avoid kind of being having an unhealthy amount of perfectionism and anxiety?
I've been thinking about this question because I deal with it with students all the time. It's great to strive. It's great to be ambitious, to want to succeed. We don't want to say, don't care about anything. It'll be fine. And that's honestly what a lot of students imagine is the only alternative to perfection. So they say, I can't let go of this, Kimberly, because if I don't just do everything possible and torture myself over this, I'm going to end up living in my car. Like it's always the same image that they have of just like, I will be destitute is the end of that story. And so part of this is there room for there just being different paths that's not the all or the nothing?
Right.
But again, it's very easy to say this. It's really hard to believe it. So I was planning for this interview and I thought of another metaphor.
Oh, good.
I think stories or images stick better.
I love stories.
So I'm a true millennial working with this lovely Gen Z crowd. So I love Harry Potter. Surprise.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And my husband and I were reading it out loud a couple of years ago. And we've read it so often in our lives that we're very well acquainted with the story. So consistently throughout all of the books, we're reading it out loud and we're like, wait, hold on, this doesn't work because yada, yada, yada. Or why didn't they think to do this? Because la, 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 la. Because we're so well versed in this story.
You know it so well, yeah.
We know it so well. Many people would say Harry Potter is an excellent book series. And I would agree. There is excellence in that. Is it a perfect book series? No. But we equate those words in our minds and sometimes a lot of perfectionists will say, no, I'm not a perfectionist because I'm not perfect. I'm so bad. There's no way that I could be a perfectionist. But they're all secretly striving to have the perfect book series of their life. There's a way to be excellent in what you're doing that does not demand perfection. And there's still so much worth in that. People around the world find so much meaning in Harry Potter. They see themselves in that story. It resonates with them, even though there are major plot holes. Another way to look at this is Harry Potter would be a really, really bad accounting textbook. If you're like, there's no way that Harry Potter can be all of the things all at once. It's trying to do one specific thing and tell one story. But lots of times when we think about excellence, I see this in my office all the time. People want to have the perfect relationship. They want to be the best in their class. They want to land the best internship. But there has to be balance in things. And maybe all of those things are important for you. And so it's worth, you know, getting a B because you want your life to have this excellence that's in line with your values.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of Elder Holland's message, be ye therefore perfect eventually.
Mhm.
That Christ's commandment, he says, be ye therefore perfect, even as I
Mhm.
and your Father in heaven is perfect. And Elder Holland explains that's not going to come now while we're in college. It's going to come eventually if we have an eternal perspective. And so I love that you have separated the idea of excellence and perfection.
Mhm.
And Harry Potter, it's an excellent book. It's not a perfect book. I don't know if there is really anything that's absolutely perfect, but there's where we can all strive for excellence.
Yes, and we have to kind of hold the duality of this that BYU's mission is to like help individuals with their quest for perfection.
Yeah.
That was not verbatim, but that's the idea of it. So we have to say, okay, there's something that we're all striving for, but it's eventually. And I've yet to have BYU come out with a statement of, we did it, guys. We got one person to perfection. Sometimes it can just get in our mind, well, that's what we're supposed to be going for, but it's not going to happen in this life for anyone until we are saved through the Savior eventually. The other thing that came to mind, and take this or leave this if you'd like, but I thought about George Lucas and Star Wars and how everyone, like so many people love the original Star Wars movies, and he keeps playing with it. He'll re-release it and he'll change something.
Yes.
And like, sorry to people who are big fans, I think that it actually makes it worse. But he can't let it go because he's trying to make it perfect. And by trying to make it so perfect, he's actually hurting the art that he made. So there has to be a point of, I've done enough and I have to let this go. I've worked enough on the assignment and I need to step back from it now.
Yes. Right. I accept and give it your all. Um, but I love that idea. I love that idea, and I think something too is sometimes like for me, and for a lot of people I've talked to, your idea of perfectionism is sometimes based on like what you see in other people and maybe like their life circumstances. Um, and so I know comparison is something that you probably help a lot, or helping people not compare is probably something that you um, try to teach or try to promote. But not comparing yourself with other students is so hard
It
in
is.
college. Do you have any suggestions for me or for other people of how to not just avoid comparing,
Yes.
being it in the race for myself and my own growth?
The first thing that came to my mind was stop it. Just stop it. And I say that tongue in cheek. If we could just stop it, we would. If I could stop comparing myself to people, I would. But this is something that we almost everyone struggles with because it comes from a biological basis. We need to make sure, am I okay? Because if we think way, 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 way back to our ancient ancestors, they need to know, am I accepted in this group? Because if I get kicked out, I could die. Like I can't sustain myself without community. So it's coming from a place that's trying to help us, but in today's society, it can sometimes get in the way. So my first real piece of advice is just say, "Hey brain, thanks for trying to help me. Acknowledge that there's a reason that there's a part of you that's comparing." Um I wish that we could all see that people aren't what they present. As a therapist, I get to be in a privileged seat where even the most perfect looking person, you would not believe the things that they're struggling with too, but that's not the part that we show to everyone.
Yeah.
So, another piece of advice would be to invest in the relationships that really matter to you and get feedback and connection with those people. I think comparison comes most when we're in isolation or when algorithms are telling us what's important. So go to those real places. And then the last piece of advice I would have is get very clear on what your actual values are. One of my favorite activities to do with students is we do a value sort, and I have like 70 cards with different values like social connectedness or diversity or faith, whatever it is, and they arrange them. They choose the most important, and they arrange them. And we talk about what does this look like in your life? I see that fun is really important to you. Are you living that? And we get their own unique set of values and what they mean. And then we try to just compare to themselves
Oh,
of how how have I not lived this? And how do I want to take one more step towards living the thing that's actually important to me?
interesting. Yeah, I can see how that would help me um, turn kind of like inward, but in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's like, I really want to have more charity. Like, what does that
Mm-hmm.
look like for me? Not like, oh, I want to be more like this guy.
Yeah.
He has charity, but like, oh, like what can I do? That's great.
And everyone's are so different. It's so fun to see people do it and they just like toss aside one that was someone's number one.
Oh,
And they know it's an important thing, but everyone, the words mean different things to them. What we're supposed to do in our life is just different. And so finding what your unique values are is key.
wow. Okay. I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly. This
Mhm.
has been great. We asked all of our guests at the end,
Yeah.
how do you measure success? And what are good ways to measure success right?
Yes. And I thought about this question and I wanted to have this answer of like, success isn't what other people are doing. It's just inside of you. And that's a part of me believes that's true, but I want to be honest that there's another part of me that when I define success, I'm like, well, I need to have a really good job. I need to have X amount of money. I need to have my life look like this. And I would not be genuine if I said, oh, no, I don't think about success that way at all. But that's not how I want to think about success. And so the question that you have is how do you measure success? And I would strive to measure success as how much am I living in line with the values that really matter to me? And there might be a fake version of success that's masking that measurement, but I need to get back to what I know I need to do in my life.
I love that. And that goes back to our discussion of excellence versus perfection.
Mm-hmm.
That if we were to say, if we were to give the perfect example of how I measure success, I measure success in the perfect way. Well, I want to measure success in the perfect way, but and so I thank you for sharing that. I think that's really helpful for me and for our listeners too.
Of course.
So this has been so great, Kimberly. I've learned a lot. Actually, I've learned a ton, and I'm more motivated to just be intentional about how I think and about if I'm comparing and how I strive for excellence. And so thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And I'll say really quickly that if students would like to schedule an appointment with me or my interns, they can do that on caps.byu.edu. There's some paperwork to fill out, and then they just call the CAPS office and say, hey, I'm a business student. And then they get them scheduled over here at the Tanner Building.
Okay, sounds great. Perfect. Yeah, we'll put a link in the notes.
Perfect.
And we'll have it there. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And for all those who are listening, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Measuring Success Right.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect official policy or position of Brigham Young University or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.